Please open to page 119 of your learning workbook and read along as we learn together. Divide complex numbers. Finding the conjugate of a complex number. The conjugate of a complex number is found by changing the sign of the imaginary part of the complex number. For example, the conjugate of negative 2.5 plus 3i is negative 2.5 minus 3i. The conjugate of 3/4 minus 7/13 I is 3/4 plus 7/13 I. The conjugate of I is negative I. Now, before we move on, I would like to create a connection to a previous learning objective. Complex conjugate is something that we're studying now, but conjugate is a word we've heard before. It was in section 7.5. A conjugate at that time was explained as changing the sign of the middle term. And that's still true here for when our complex number has both an imaginary and a real part. The imaginary part is 3i, the real part is negative 2.5, and the sign in between them is changing from plus to minus or from minus to plus. But what makes complex numbers so interesting is that they don't always have two terms. So we have to remember that the conjugate of I is negative I because it is the sign of the imaginary part that is changing. All right, with this, now we can learn the skill dividing complex numbers. To divide complex numbers, first view the division as a fraction. Then multiply both numerator and denominator of the conjugate of the denominator. This process is quite similar to that used to rationalizing a denominator. We have two problems that we are going to look at.